Hey, what's up, guys? This is Rick with the Digital Divide, and today we're going to be talking about more impossible ports. This is part 3 of a 3-part series that I made where I discuss video games that should not be able to run on the hardware that they are running on. And this takes a lot of creativity on the part of the developers to get these games working. So without further ado, let's start with Road Rash. This is for the Sega Master System. It was ported over or converted to the Master System by Probe Software, and it was a really faithful port of this game and really impressive looking considering the hardware. You got to remember, this is an 8-bit console. This isn't even on the same level as a Genesis. And a lot of games, racing games specifically, did simple left and right scrolling, but this game added depth. So there was a lot of verticality where the roads would go up and down and your bike would react realistically. And this was not common, especially on 8-bit consoles. The next game I want to talk about is Forsaken for the PlayStation 1. And this is a really impressive technical feat, not for, any kind of geometric complexity or, any kind of weird or crazy new post-processing features that they were implementing, but it was impressive for the fact that it ran at 60 frames per second. And it did this while maintaining the full polygonal level structure of the PC version, while also keeping all of the cool lighting effects and everything. Games running on the original PlayStation at 60 frames per second were not very common, and this game on the PC, as you can see above here, looked and ran great if you had a graphics accelerator, which was relatively new at the time, but the PlayStation 1 is doing all of this in software, and it's running at 60 frames per second, and it compares pretty favorably to the PC version, which required an expensive gaming PC to run. The next game I want to talk about is Doom Eternal for the Nintendo Switch. Now, when they ported the original Doom to the Switch, that was an impressive feat in its own right, but Doom Eternal cranks everything up to 10. This is a much, much, much bigger game than the original 2016 Doom. The levels are gigantic, and they were able to cram all of this into a console that is running on 7-year-old cell phone architecture, essentially. I mean, this game still looks incredible, and it's playing on a system with 4 gigs of RAM that was built on a 2017 era Tegra 1 chipset. So it's just unbelievable that they were able to get this running on the Switch, and I think that's really a testament to the id engine, which is incredibly impressive. It is so well optimized on every hardware that you throw at it. This is just really impressive to see. Next game I want to talk about is Resident Evil for the Game Boy Color. A lot of people forget that this console got a port of the game. It even had some voice acting. Now, looking at the game, it is obviously not using any polygons, and the sprite work is not the highest resolution, but when you compare this side by side to the PlayStation original, it is shocking how close of an experience they were able to emulate. And when you think about the fact that the PlayStation 1, those discs are hundreds of megabytes, up to 700 megabytes per disc, I believe. And when you're talking about the Game Boy Color, you're talking about kilobytes. They have to store all of that game data on this tiny little cartridge, and the fact that they were able to cram and get a relatively complete experience in the palm of your hand back then especially was unbelievable. So this was a really huge technical accomplishment, and in my opinion, you even had like the full menu system, and every major scene or cutscene is replicated in 2D, and it looks really impressive in my opinion. Next game I want to talk about is Hogwarts Legacy for the Nintendo Switch, and this is a more recent release, but every time I look at this game, I am absolutely blown away that they were able to get this running on the Switch. You got to remember, this game was designed specifically for this generation of hardware, so the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation 5 and super high-end PCs with GPUs that have, 20, 30, 40 teraflops. and to cram that entire experience and have it still look as good as it does is just unbelievable in my opinion. It is a massive open world. I mean, sure, if you look and compare it to the PlayStation 4, which is running at 900p, or the PlayStation 5, which is running at a dynamic 4K, you're going to see some big cutbacks on the Switch. But when you compare it to the PS4 specifically, it still holds up shockingly well, and it still looks like the game. It's all there. The PlayStation 5 is a whole nother story. It's using ray tracing and all kinds of stuff that give it a different appearance. But the fact that, again, this is running at all on a Nintendo Switch and that it still looks like the same game is just on a whole nother level of cool. Next game I want to talk about is Quake for the Game Boy Advance. Now, this is not an official port. This game was never ported to the Switch officially. This is a relatively recent community port of this game. And again, when you look at games like Doom, those games are not real 3D. It's kind of a trick. Games like Quake, though, were fully polygonal. The entire engine was ported to the Game Boy Advance, and as you can see here, it's running relatively well. The fact that somebody got this running on this hardware it blows my mind. And I'm a big fan of Quake. I played the game when it came out on PC, and I bought just about every port that came out afterwards. So I consider this a really cool technical accomplishment. And you can get online if you know where to look. You can download this and play it via emulation if you want to, but highly recommend it. With this port, it lets you get into the dev menu and you can see the actual polygons being used. You can turn textures on and off and see how well it runs and tinker with it, almost kind of like a PC, but for the Game Boy Advance, which is just so crazy. But yeah, guys, this is really going to do it for me today. As always, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you check out my other two videos, if I missed anything between the three of these that deserve a shout out. As always, thank you for watching.